Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Have you been watching the new series of The Gladiators? Well, I have. And it was one of those rare occasions where I was going to break my rule of not really watching much TV. But this one was an absolute must. It's something I used to love watching when I was a kid. For those of you unfamiliar with it, Gladiators is a sports entertainment TV show in the UK, but it's also been across the world. It's been one of the most defining game shows back in the 90s in the UK. Athletic members of the public battle as contenders against the show's very own mighty gladiators to earn an array of points in events that test their speed, strength, stamina, and skill. The contender with the most points earns a head start as they move towards the end of the show and the dreaded Eliminator course. Basically, the first to finish wins the episode and moves on to the next round in the hope of being crowned the series champion. Now, this returned back to our screens in 2024, and our very own Bronte Jones from the firefighter community was right there in the thick of it, kicking ass and taking names. She did absolutely incredibly, and as you will have seen on the final episode that recently came out, she unfortunately sustained an injury in the final, which brought to an end an absolutely incredible demonstration of athleticism and really just the great values, determination and resiliency that we expect from our frontline first responders, firefighters. So as you won't be surprised to hear, the fire service is not a massive community, certainly here in the UK, and through a few shared connections to previous guests, myself and Bronte found ourselves chatting away about her experience as she has gone through the show. And right here, you're going to get the inside scoop. You're going to hear exactly what it was like being on the show, being part of something like that. You're going to hear what you had to do to apply for it. We're going to talk about Bronte's weightlifting background, why she goes to the gym, her high-achieving mindset, and how that was developed and nurtured in her even from a child. We're going to talk about putting yourself around positive people, and also a little bit around healthy selfishness, how you need to make sure you fill your own cup up first to be able to have the mental fortitude to take on challenges like this. And obviously we're going to touch base on setbacks and that mental resiliency. Bronte got an injury during the show, but it was actually filmed quite some time ago. So she's almost fully recovered. And today we're talking about her reflections on the show, her role as a firefighter, and this whole mad journey that was Gladiators 2024. So I hope you take a lot from it. It was a real privilege to chat with Bronte, and I really look forward to seeing her at some events in the future. She's an incredible young woman, incredible athlete, and an incredible example of the type of people that are attracted to the role of a firefighter and first responder. Thanks for coming back to the podcast. I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you on the other side. I'd love to start with, how's the body feeling? How's the body feeling? People will have seen the final by the time this comes out. Where are you at physically and mentally now?
Well, the thing is obviously the shows come out every week, but it was all filmed within like a week.
Yeah.
So it was a semi and the final, like 2 days in a row. Wow. So like in at like 10 o'clock at night, just jumping in the ice bath, trying to recover, and then straight back at it. Yeah, I just remember looking up on the wall of the final and just like thinking my forearms have got nothing in them.
Yeah, so that's almost so unfair, isn't it? Because people look at it and they think, oh, I wonder what she's done in the week leading up to it. I wonder how she's recovered. I wonder if she had to go back to work during it. Like, how long ago was it recorded? Because I remember when I did the SAS thing, it was like 8 months after we recorded it, it came out. So when was Gladiators take part for you?
It was the start of June.
Exactly.
It's quite a while ago.
So it's like 8 months ago.
Yeah.
So you'll be like full your rehab and everything now. Yeah. But okay, so back in June, Jesus. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. Take us way back to the selection for it. What gave you the idea for it? Did you know anybody that was on it? Because we had, I was speaking with Livy Sheldon, Diamond. She was due to come on like 2 months ago, but she was, she's got like an agent and all this sort of stuff. And she was like, oh, well, I can't talk about any of the stuff until it comes out. I was like, we won't release it until it comes out anyway. Anyway, she is coming on the podcast. But yeah, people won't know how long it's been since then. But what was your motivation to do it?
So I think I just saw on social media that there was going to be a remake of Gladiator, and I originally applied to be a gladiator because I thought it'd be absolutely amazing. It was all filmed in Sheffield. So I thought, how brilliant would that be, like our hometown? So yeah, I applied to be a gladiator. I just didn't hear nothing back for absolutely ages. Like this was 2022, I think.
Wow.
Like when it first, it was a real while ago now. And yeah, I just didn't hear nothing for absolutely ages. So I just thought, I just not got on or anything. But then they rang me up close to when they started filming and just said, so all the gladiators have been sorted now, but we'd like to come and try out to be content. So I was like, oh yeah, brilliant. So I went to Manchester to do like a day of just testing and stuff. And then I found out after that I was going to be part of the show, but literally didn't have any time to train or anything because it was so quick.
So what was the testing? What did they actually get you to do? Because again, we went to London for the SES thing and we did sprints, we did the bleep test to 10 points something. It was press ups in 2 minutes, sit ups in 2 minutes, and then like on camera interview. What was your testing like?
Yeah, so I bet it was similar to that really. I mean, there was like different stuff like how many burpees you can do in a minute, how many dumbbell snatches, some rowing and sprints, and then there was some stuff on camera, like to see how you was on camera and things like that. So it sounds pretty similar, to be fair. Was
there any absolute savages there? Because when I was looking around, like there was an ex-GB rower that was on there. He never actually got onto the show. I'm not sure why. I think you have to have a really messed up story to get onto things like SES. I was like with people who were like, half of them were raped as a child. And I'm not saying that was funny at all, but I'm like, Jesus Christ, everywhere you turned, it was like a mental health clinic. And I say that with the greatest respect. I still go on some climbs and some mountain climbs with a lot of the people that I met on the show. But there was some like mental trauma. And then the people that you look around with who were like absolutely incredible athletes, some of them never made it through. Like, was there anyone, how many people were at the trials? And like, what was the sort of caliber like?
So it was going off all day and it was over a couple of days. So my slot was about 3 hours and they like split us up into 2 groups. So I think there was about 10 in my group, 10 in the other group. There were quite a lot of people. And yeah, there were some machines there, like some proper like muscles and 6-packs going off. And I don't have a I was just kind of thinking, I think I'm out my depth a bit here, but
I would imagine there's some super juicy people, like, and I'll say this, and these are my opinions, not yours, but when I watched the show, I remember the original Gladiators, and I was privileged enough to meet a few of them, and even the current Gladiators. So, Jamie Johal, Giant, we had him on the podcast a couple of years ago, because he used to be a firefighter. And Jamie, of his own admittance, is a ex-IFBB pro bodybuilder now, masses and masses of steroids and growth hormone and all this sort of stuff. And I remember back in the original Gladiators, everyone looked super juicy. And the same as when I went for this SAS thing, there was people there, you're like, Jesus Christ, I hope they are not doing drugs tests. But it looks like a lot of the contenders that got through are like tactical athletes like yourself, fit, healthy people, but haven't got veins popping out of their foreheads. But there must have been some real freaks knocking about with the I say beautiful freaks in the nicest sense.
Yeah, they were. It was just good to see. Like they were this one guy who he didn't get on the show actually, but he was like this calisthenic guy, and he was like mad. He could just literally just run on his hands.
Yeah.
Like I'm surprised he actually because he weren't very big, but just for his body weight, he was like so super strong.
Well, I've thought about that with the guys because with the girls, it seems like, and again, it's obvious from your performance on the show, like the girls sometimes seem quite fairly matched to some of the gladiators. Like some of the events that you've done, some of the gauntlet stuff, some of the pugil stick fights. Like some of you have nearly had, and I think some of you did through the series, have a few of the gladiators off there. But with the men, like you say, I'm looking at some of the male athletes, and they're all incredible athletes in their own right. I really like the military guy. I forget was it Finn? What was the military guy's name? The army guy. Yeah, he seemed a lovely bloke. And he's like a great representation, similar to yourself, of our first responders, of our frontline sort of tactical athletes. But some of the guys, I was like, why have they picked that guy? But then I also thought to myself, if it like this calisthenic dude that you're referring to, I bet they wouldn't pick someone who is going to absolutely embarrass the gladiators because it is supposed to be a bit of a David and Goliath. You know what I mean? Like if you'd have got like there's some real CrossFit athletes that we took to Saudi Arabia recently, and I'm like, some of those guys would not destroy, but they would really put some of that to the test. So I was like, I wonder why they didn't pick some of the. Do you think there was maybe a little bit of that going on? Because there is some incredible, especially with the growth of things like CrossFit and gyms. Fitness is like the new social place for pubs, isn't it? Like people don't go to the pub anymore, people go to the gym, and everyone's kind of into it.
Yeah.
So I was like, there'll be some real savages on this. But the men, they didn't have any like ex-Olympians going up against the Gladiators, because I think some of them would have destroyed them.
I know. I think that's the thing. What like with the men compared to the women, like obviously blokes, you can get some massive like 6'6" giants, can't you?
Yeah.
But with women, like you can't. Like
it's a shorter spectrum, isn't it? Yeah. Like I mean, some women are really incredible, but like really fit women versus like normal athletic women, it's a shorter spectrum than you would see with some of the men. And again, sometimes you get some super crazy performance enhanced applicants coming on who have like, you know, ran round the earth twice with a log on their back or something. And you're like, well, you know, you're not going to get Ross Edgley going on Gladiators to compete against them. You just be like, what the hell? I also think a lot of them had, like, some of the female athletes, like Livy, she didn't have a massive social media following before she went on the show. But then you compare to people like Matt Does Fitness, there's Zach. Is it Zach? Who's it is Zach, isn't it? Who's like fittest guy in the UK 2 or 3 times. And then there's what's the sprinter? Is it Harry? Harry's the sprinter. Yeah, beautiful man. Amazing aesthetics, but also massive social media following. I think there maybe was a bit of that as well. Jamie's obviously IFBB Pro, so it's a little bit like you want characters to carry the show as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that they're trying to pitch the Gladiators as like superhuman type.
Yes.
Like
you want the underdog story, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that they did have. Was there any other first responders? I thought we'd see some police officers and stuff in there. Were you the only? I think you were the only firefighter on the show.
I was. Well, obviously there's Lee Phillips, a ref.
Yes, I remember Lee, because Lee, we've done a load of British Firefight Challenge stuff with him, and when he said he was on it, I thought he meant he was going on the show. But then he was not just one of the refs. It's amazing that he got that, and he does a lot of work with turf games. I think he designs all of their programming and stuff as well. But yeah, super cool guy. Who's the lady ref? Because I've only seen her get involved once, twice, and she seemed really nice.
Yeah, she was lovely. She was called Sonia, and she's part of like GB netball.
I was going to say she looks like a netball or a sprinter because she's so tall.
Yeah, she was.
She seemed proper lovely. But yeah, so we've got Lee and yourself, firefighters on the show. But I didn't see any police, ambulance. Obviously, we have Finn from the military. But then a lot of them, I think it's that connecting with the audience, isn't it? Because a lot of people there was working class people, you know, everyday heroes kind of thing.
Yeah, there was one paramedic. She was called Zoe, but she got knocked out in the heats.
Oh, bless her. Okay.
But yeah, so there were one paramedic, but there were no coppers.
No. Well, I always say coppers, people that fail to get into the fire service, and that's just my words, nobody else's. Bless them. But then they try and fish it. No, I'm joking. So you know what? Let's go there for a second, because connect the dots looking backwards. People might look at you and go, "Wow, she's really short." Pretty young lady. I'm astonished she could be a firefighter. And I have a female firefighter who drives on one of my shifts, and people look at her sometimes and they're like, "Oh, I'm surprised they let you drive." But you're like 3rd generation. Your partner's in the fire service. Like, was this always something you wanted to do, or did you come to it later in life? Because you're still quite young.
Yeah, I mean, I joined at 18, but growing up, even though my dad, since I've been born, has been in the fire service, I was never like, yeah, this is definitely what I want to do.
Yeah.
It's kind of out of the blue, because I just started my first year of sixth form, and I saw that they were recruiting for whole-time firefighters again. And I've not spoken to Dad about it before, but it just popped up. Like, "Oh, Dad, what do you think?" And he was like, "Yeah, you'd be brilliant as a firefighter." And it just kind of went from there, really. But yeah, it was one of them things that I wasn't like dead set, like, yes, this is what I want to do. I kind of just applied off the cuff type thing.
So you got in whole time first time at 18?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I really was shocked, because my dad and obviously other people have said that normally it takes a few times to like applying to get on.
It is so disheartening. It's
applied.
like a lottery. I always say to people, they ask you for tips. I'm sure thousands of people will message you tips to get into the fire service, because it's really great with the inclusive diversity that we're getting in the fire service now. But when people ask you for advice for interviews or applications, it's like, well, use the SMART principle, research the values of the service. And beyond that, it really can be a lottery. In other news, this episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the centre of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. You can view battery life, air pressure and estimated time remaining either independently on the M1 itself or from the Luna connected device screen. Also, still with the air status, alarm information, search status and all of this provided to the incident command for confident decision making during the scene. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. One of the key parts of the Luna is their FAST system, the Firefighting Assisting Search Technology. This combines directional and distance information with thermal imaging to help find separated teammates and decrease response time. It actually connects you to the other crews in the vicinity for a unified search during the time of mutual aid by instantly notifying the network of Luna devices when there is a downed crew member, allowing for a prompt search and rescue. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. It enables you to see the exact location of your firefighters on the scene. And it doesn't require you to be sat on the station. The MSA Hub then provides a wireless gateway straight to the cloud, enabling wireless on-scene data for local and remote incident command for additional eyes on the scene. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity. MSA is dedicated to increasing safety in the fire service through technological advancements. Various feature enhancements, new products, partnerships and integrations will provide additional capabilities readily accessible by products, software and services in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show.
It literally is, isn't it? I kind of went with the mentality of I'm not going to get in this time, but I know what I can do better for applying again next time.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of like passed it. I got to see, like, oh my gosh, I might actually get in now.
So how long have you been in the job now?
So since 2018, so
about 6 years.
5 years now.
5-6 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you first looked into this, like, did you share? So things like the show, they always tell you you're not allowed to share it with people as well, because they obviously want to do the launch and all that sort of stuff. So like, give us the beans now. Like, how early on when they rang you? So it would have been June that you filmed it. When did they ring you and say, Gladiators are all filled, we're looking for contestants, we've reviewed your footage and your film and we think you'd be great? And like, when were you allowed to start? Because would you have to get time off work, or did they drop it between shifts? Because like, secrets in the fire service that are non-existent. Like, everybody knows everything. So trying to keep something like this bottled up must have been impossible.
Yeah. So I didn't actually know about it till May.
Wow.
They left it like really close.
Jesus.
And I think they left it close on purpose.
Yeah.
They said we couldn't like tell anyone. But me being me, I can't keep anything. So I just I got told don't tell anyone. I told me dad and I told a couple.
Oh God.
And then
I also think past a certain point, once they've filmed with you, it's like they're not going to use it because they can't get everybody together again. But you're not going to be a dick and just like, blast it all over social media. So, I imagine, I wonder if they pick people, because again, like firefighters, good values, they probably think you're trustworthy. But if you're just an everyday Joe, I'm just an electrician that owns my own business or whatever, you start splurging it all over socials, selfies, hashtag at the Gladiators trial, just meeting everyone. It's like, dude, no. We had it with the SES thing where people were putting on their stories and someone got a very stern talking to, I think. They might have even got a legal threat about like, you realise you did sign a thing that says don't do the thing. You are just a walking, talking prop in our £1 million, show here.
Yeah. See, trial, I didn't really say much about that because I thought if I start telling people I'm going on a show and then don't actually get picked for it, I'm going to look like a right idiot.
Oh, no. So you went for the filming. When you got it, So you said like May. So this is like 3 or 4 weeks. They said we need you to come down to Sheffield. Obviously, it's just around the corner for you. We're going to be filming over the course of how like what was it done in a week, 2 weeks? You said. So how did you think about training for this in such a short window of time? Was there any tips? Did you start googling anything? Did you manage to talk to anybody?
I mean, I didn't train at all for gladiators. I had a few comps around that time for weightlifting and things, so I'm kind of more focusing on that. So I'll just do my best on the day and see. And I never went to like with the attitude of I'm going to win this show. I just went to think it's going to be a proper laugh to go on it. So yeah, I didn't really train for it at all, to be honest. I just carried on just doing my weightlifting and did a few treadmill runs. That were it.
So connect some of the dots for us in terms of your sporting background, because one of the there's another female weightlifter who's one of the gladiators. Her name escapes me. Dynamite. I forget what her real name is. But like, did you already know who she was? Did you know her in the weightlifting circuit? And what sort of weightlifting do you do?
So weightlifting is snatch and clean and jerk. And I'd never really met Emily before Gladiators. I've competed against her since. But before I knew who she was, like, because she's got a few like the junior records and stuff. And I followed her on Instagram and things like that, but I'd never actually done a competition with her. But yeah, it was good to like be up against. I mean, I never got a one-on-one with Dynamite.
I was surprised that they didn't put you to. Would she be in as? She's not obviously fat or anything, but she looks a bit heavier than you. Is she in a heavier weight category in weightlifting?
No, we both compete under 64. She's just really little.
Oh right, okay. You're taller than her, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm 5'6". I think she's a little bit smaller than me.
You're tiny.
But yeah, I mean, it would have been good to go against her just to see like both like lifting similar, just to see what we were like one on one. But yeah, we didn't, which were a bit of a shame.
So give us a little bit of a whistle stop tour of Olympic lifting. So you do Olympic lifting versus powerlifting or strongman or anything like that, the traditional disciplines of deadlift, bench and squat and everything that people will know of. Olympic lifting is very technically difficult. I had the privilege of training for quite a number of years at Loughborough University's power base, and some very, very technical lifters there.
Yeah, so it is literally all just technique. Obviously, you have to have strong legs, but it's more like moving around the bar rather than actually moving the bar, if you know what I mean. I'm quite the anomaly because I sort of use my strength more because my technique's a bit shocking. Okay. Like, it's more just being faster than how quick the bar moves. If you're moving up, you want to get under it faster. Yeah, that's kind of the general aim of it.
It's really scary stuff, though. Have you ever had any big... Because we'll get onto some of the physical challenges and the injuries that people obviously might have seen on the show, but have you ever had any injuries in weightlifting? How early did you get into it as well? Because, again, the world of the female Olympic lifting is still... Although, again, I think CrossFit's done a lot for bringing that strong is beautiful aspect into women engaging in weightlifting and things like that without the stigma of, oh, I'm going to get massive traps and biceps and all that rubbish.
So I sort of got into it because I used to compete in athletics before, discus and shot put, and with that I always used to train in the gym, like doing power cleans and squats and things like that, and I kind of got to the point where I just enjoyed going to the gym more than I enjoyed going throwing, because I just spend like 2 nights a week for over 2 hours literally just spinning in a circle throwing something, and I loved competing. I don't like training, so I thought, well, if I love competing and love going to the gym, and I'd seen like the sort of numbers that was like national level in weightlifting, which I could do, so I thought, why don't I just start competing in this instead? And I'm still fairly new into it. I've not done that many comps, but I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and yeah, I'm so accident prone. I had so many accidents with the bar, just like dropping it on my things like that, but it's all part of it.
You're still so young and pliable, though. Like, you haven't had any big injuries, like a common one with clean and jerks or snatch and stuff like that. Certainly with power cleans, is people breaking wrists and things like that can be a really sticky area.
Yeah, I've never. To be fair, all my biggest injuries, none of them have come from weightlifting. They've all come from different things like skiing and random things like that. But yeah, I've not had anything that's that's been like breaking your wrist is kind of like there's no coming back from that really. So yeah, fingers crossed that will for a long time yet.
I like to convince myself there's at least a little bit coming back from it. So I've tore my entire right pec off. I've snapped my patella tendon in my knee. I've tore my rotator cuff off my left shoulder. Prolapse discs in the back.
Yeah.
I always think you need to start training smarter versus harder, and that's got to be a hell of a deal. How many times a week would you train as an Olympic lifter? Because again, the guys and girls I used to train with at Loughborough, they'd only really do it 2 or 3 times a week, and then everything else would be around mobility and a bit of conditioning work and like supportive movements. I think overtraining was always the thing that killed me.
Yeah. So usually I'll weightlift like 5 times a week.
Okay.
But that includes I'll do at least either snatch or a clean or a jerk in my program, but it's mainly like squats and keeping like my strength as well. Obviously, it depends what phase I'm in. So the closer I am to a comp, it'll be more like power stuff, pure strength. But yeah, it just depends really. I literally just get my program from my coach and just do what he says. To be fair.
So are you part of a full team, or is this a personal coach that you've hired?
Yeah. So my coach he used to compete himself in weightlifting at quite a good level. So he just teaches me all the technique basically, and it's just a one-on-one. So I'm not part of the club. I just go. It's just come garage into a gym, and I just go there once a week. But
now you're doing the comps and stuff with it. Do you have that appetite? Because I imagine now as well, since the start of the show, you'd have got a rightfully amount of attention from people that are interested. Because I know before we came on and before we've been having conversations over the last couple of weeks or so, we in the UK are very self-deprecating. We struggle to fly our own flag and like cheer for ourselves, and people will say, "Oh, Bronte, you're really inspiring X, Y, Z," and you'll be like, "No, I'm just an idiot. I'm just a normal person that's just kind of having a crack." But I always say to people, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. So with the greatest respect, what you kind of stand for and embody as a young, fit, strong person, you're a first responder, you're a firefighter, good values, morals. I'm sure a lot of people would love their daughter to perhaps aspire to be someone like. I bet your partner's parents are like, yeah, he's got a good egg there. Do you know what I mean? That's how do you deal with that level of attention now? And I suppose like has the development and the way you've gotten yourself to where you are now, has it happened by accident, or is there anybody that particularly inspired you?
So I think I've always been a high achiever. Like there's kind of a saying in my family that's always like, we don't do average. And so from being like young, I've always sort of pushed myself to do more. And I've always had something like, whether it be athletics or weightlifting or gladiators or something, I just like that pressure on me. I feel like I perform better when I've got pressure on me. But yeah, like you said, I'm the typical humble person. Of if I've done something, I'm always like, "Oh yeah, you're all right." I'm never like, I don't really sell my.
You and my friend Mark. So Mark Pert, you'll know Mark. You guys are so similar. Not only because the way you talk. I always say that you guys are really frugal with your words. Like if there's a sentence that's got 9 words in it, you'll use 4, and you'll be like, "Yeah, went to shop, went," and I'm like, "Where's the rest of the words, Mark? Put the rest of the words back in that sentence. Yeah, stop pulling things out." I know we understood what you said, but anyway, the point I'm making is Mark has done so many goddamn ultra marathons. You know, he's a savage. He did the SES stuff. He got the world record London Marathon under BA, and we went out to Saudi with him. But he is such a humble guy. He's like he would never tell you anything about him unless you pinned him into a corner and said, "Oh, what are you into?" And he'd be like, "Oh, I win ultra marathons all over the world." He'd be like, "What?" You know, he's just not one of those that comes out and talks about it. So I wanted to double click on, you said there, we don't do average. That, I love that. I've got 3 children and I aspire to pass that message on to them. And it's something that I very much, but some people might hear that and it sounds a little bit like elitist. And like, I'll be honest, I don't know how you cope being part of the fire service, because the pass mark in the fire service, with the greatest respect, certainly the physical pass mark, is very, very low. How do you balance that in your head? And also like the people that you place yourself around, because you're obviously a high performer. You obviously expect a lot from yourself. And sometimes you might find yourself in environments where maybe people don't share that view, or maybe they don't want to push themselves to the level you want to push them to. And we're not saying anything about your personal colleagues or anything like that, but just like, how do you navigate that mindset and be able to be around people that perhaps don't hold themselves to the same level that you do. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, then chances are you are big into your own personal development and the development of firefighters around you. So I wanted to remind you of our mobile app Drill Book. This is a free training and development resources made by firefighters for firefighters. Heading onto Drillbook, you will find incident debriefs, radio messages, notes and lines, quick reference guides, quizzes every single day. We've got useful links to the ERG, to Web Rescue, to Jessup, Euro Rescue, 10-second triage, National Operational Guidance. You've got trauma skills sessions and questions in there with 10-second surveys, patient handovers, questioning, bleed controls, vitals, major incidents, and not to mention our daily quizzes where you will find questions on extrication, casualty handling, breathing apparatus, fire development, water rescue, rope rescue, you name it. It is the go-to resource if you've got a spare 5 minutes on the firehouse to develop yourself and those around you. Not only that, if you're looking to get into the fire service, we've got advice on there on interview questions, interview answers. You can build your own questioning in there. We've got radio messages apps where you can develop and put together your own methane, if code, and a whole area dedicated to knots and lines and incident debriefs as well. All of the incident debriefs that we have gone through on the podcast, you'll find them there. And again, remember, this is built by firefighters for firefighters. So you can add your own drills in there. You can pick the drills that you find the most favorite. When you go to search for different drills in there, you can find breathing apparatus, hazmat, incident command, ladder drills, pumping, RTC, trauma skills, winching and recovery, urban search and rescue, height rescue, water rescue. There is literally hundreds of training ideas, hundreds of drills in there. And you can continue to build this library of resource for yourself and for firefighters all around the world. Remember, this app is absolutely free and it grows every single day down to the contributions of our thousands and thousands of users. So if you've got that favorite training drill and you want to share it with somebody else, get in there. If you're looking for ideas for training yourself and your crews, get in there. It's freely available on Android, Apple, and you will find it in the links for this podcast. Remember, it's called personal development. The clue's in the name. You've got to work twice as hard on yourself as you do on the job. So always be growing, always be developing. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, I try and surround myself with as many positive people as I can. Like, for example, Harry, my boyfriend, is five-time Muay Thai world champion.
Whoa.
So, he's a well. But, yeah, I think it's just more just setting myself my own personal goals of what I can achieve and focus on that, really. I think it is important to surround yourself with other inspirational people, but sometimes I think it's just nice to try and inspire, no matter how big a goal is. Like, it doesn't have to be a world champion. It can just be anything every day, sort of. Yeah, I think it's quite a difficult question, that, but I think you just got to, no matter what level you're at, just have some goals to achieve and then just feel like you've achieved something in a day, sort of. Way of looking at it.
I totally agree with you, but like that aspect of trying to inspire other people can be exhausting. Like I did this, I coached people and owned a few gyms for about 10 years, but you can end up setting yourself on fire to try and keep everybody else warm. And that can be very, very draining. Like, how do you... I always talk about this aspect of healthy selfishness as well, because to be an athlete and to compete at the levels you compete at, you do have to have a healthy amount of selfishness. And selfish is a very emotive word. People feel like it means you don't care about anybody else. It's not what we're talking about here, but like, you can't pour from an empty cup. You've got to sort your stuff out first, and you've got to make sure that you can only help other people from a position of strength. If you were, unhealthy, fat, financially destitute, not able to support yourself, you would struggle to help others and give advice. So like, how do you protect your own priorities and not allow yourself to get wrapped up in the priorities of everybody else?
I mean, I'm not going to lie, I don't think I am the best at that, really, because I think I do spend a lot of time I'll always try and help anyone, who, like, no matter what. And I know there's that saying of, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And it does get very frustrating sometimes when you are trying to help people and they don't want to help themselves. But I think from my past experiences, I've been in situations before where I've not helped myself. So I do understand it. And yeah, I just think it can be very draining sometimes. Sometimes you do have to take a little bit of a back seat and think, am I really making a difference with this person? But yeah, it's hard to do that sometimes, isn't it, when you do care about people?
It's morally difficult because you feel drawn, you naturally want to help people. But like, again, with the gift and curse of social media now, like I imagine, and please tell me if it's not the case, but you will have had some form of increase in the amount of people asking you for advice in some capacity or another, whether that be life advice, training advice, whatever advice. To my limited knowledge, you don't coach people, do you? Do you coach people? No. So you'll end up trying to, I advise you do this, this, and this. People have probably asked you for like advice and coaching, stuff like that. That's a black hole. You can't fill that cup up. You can just keep pouring into that and it will suck the life out of you till you're just a withered, hollow mess. Like, how have you managed being polite enough to give people that inspiration, but also, I'm not going to allow this to consume my life, otherwise I'm not going to get anything done either?
Yeah, I think I do struggle with saying no a lot of the time, because I do just want to try and help people. But I think sometimes it is important to think, right, I don't like putting myself first, but sometimes you have to. It has to be a priority if you want to achieve anything. So I think I do get to the point where I'm just like, right, I need to just take a step back here and focus on myself a little bit. And it is hard, but it is something that you have to do if you want to achieve your goals in life, isn't it?
How have you balanced it with the fire service and this new sort of attention that's been shunted upon you? Have services, and again, we're not going to specifically speak about the service that you're working for, but have people wanted to make you into posters? Because that's also a difficult one as well. Like, speaking to some ladies from London Fire Brigade recently, and a lot of them get encouraged to do this kind of, let's get all the women on one truck and we'll move the whole service around to get all the women on one truck. And some people are like, yeah, I get what you're trying to do and that's absolutely fine. I'm happy to be involved in it. But Bronte's a firefighter, first and foremost. She's not a female firefighter. She's a firefighter. And it just, by happen chance that she was born a woman. But like, how have you managed that? Because you are thankful for the support you've had from your service. They do champion you. They have given you, time and support and all this sort of jazz to do something like this. But most people don't want to be made into a poster child or a poster girl or whatever the right terminology might be. Like, how have you managed that? Because you're still very young in your career as well. You want to focus on doing the thing.
Yeah, I think from when I did join at 18 and being young and a female and not the stereotypical female firefighter, I think from then I kind of became the poster girl from being a recruit. And it's hard when you are a recruit to sort of say no to anything, isn't it? So I think I've got better at it from then. Like you just said then, and I put a post up about this the other day, that I just see myself as a firefighter, not a female firefighter. I just see myself as a firefighter, and I think sometimes I think that it makes it worse when they push the female aspect so much because it segregates you. I think they're trying to include you more, but it just ends up segregating you.
It's such a different side to two sides of the same coin, isn't it? It's like, treat everybody the same, we're all the same. And then, like, I'm a big supporter of women in the fire service, I go there all the time, but sometimes I also think, like, people ask me why do I go to it, and I go, because it's a great personal development event. Like, I meet a bunch of great, interesting firefighters and senior leaders, and we have some great training courses. To be fair, it doesn't really matter to me that it is solely for the support of women. I think it's fantastic that it does that, because I appreciate the minority and the need to identify champions and leaders and support each other. But shouldn't we, we just support each other anyway? Like, we should all just support each other anyway. I always think this is difficult when I look at nursing, because they've had the same problem in reverse for a very long time. Like, they struggle to attract male nurses to the sector because something ridiculous like 90% of nurses are females. And they've not managed to shift the needle on that in 50 years. Very, very small. Whereas we're actually doing pretty good. But I think the problem is we compare ourselves to society when we go, 49% of society is females. We want to reflect our society. Why aren't all the firefighters females? Well, actually, it's quite difficult. And also, people like Bronte might be quite rare. So it is tough to balance that. Bronte, you're quite rare. We want to kind of publicise that you're here and that you're great and what you're doing. But also for you want to be like, I'm a normal firefighter, same as everybody else. I'm happy if you celebrate me, but have you seen what Dave's doing or Sam's doing? Like, he's pretty great as well. That's got to be tough sometimes.
Yeah, do you know one thing that does really frustrate me sometimes? Like when people are asking about joining the job and things like that, and they're like, oh, what's the fitness test? And I feel embarrassed sometimes to say how the fitness tests are. They're so low because we need more women in the job. And it's like, that's so wrong, because it's not just about women, it's just everyone in general. It's the wrong people for the job. And I think our job is always, it's never going to be 50-50. It's always going to be a male dominated environment because it attracts a lot more men.
Mhm.
And I think that the right type of women for the job can obviously achieve a lot higher fitness standard than what we've got at the minute. And it does frustrate me sometimes because I just think that, like, there's no need for it to be like that. Like, there's no need for it to be 50-50 because you just want the best people for the job. And statistically, the best people are going to be a lot more men than there is women. There's still great women.
Well, yeah, that's like the final filter, isn't it?
brilliant.
Because you say to the member of the public, like, who would you want as a firefighter? They'll go, I want somebody that's fit, strong, good morals, good values, good resiliency, they're honest. I don't think they'd even care if you're black, white, blue, pink, man, woman, trans, whatever. Like, they want to make sure that you can pull that 15 stone man, woman out of the building when they're, you know, they're infirm, they've got poor mobility, they're on life support, whatever. They don't care who arrives at the top of the ladder. But I do also appreciate the other side of the coin, where I think we don't want to be seen to discriminate. And that's the big thing. And 100%, discrimination is horrible. I was bullied as a kid. But I think we've passed that. I don't think we're discriminating. There's a difference between discriminating and then just changing the rules to suit a certain model. And that's not inherently what we're doing yet, but I worry that we're going to head, because not everybody starts at the same point. Like, you sound like you've got a supportive family, you've got a supportive network. Some people don't start at the same start line. There's a great YouTube video where you see where everyone starts, and like, some people are 10 meters back from the start line before they even get going because they haven't got the support. They may not be physically fit. They may not have the education to know how to get fit. Like, it sounds like you, your dad, your partner are fit people, and he is clearly, and I imagine your mum as well, let's give some attribute to her. They've created an environment of positive psychology where you have good self-confidence, you have self-belief, you don't stand for average, you know that you have the potential to aspire for more, and also you almost have a duty for it. There's a great Stoic quote that it's a shame for a man to die without knowing the full potential of his physicality. And the same quote works for men and women, but it's just the fact that that's the way the stuff was written. People say that sometimes. They're like, oh, that's sexist. I'm like, have you looked at legislation? Like, if you look at the Health and Safety at Work Act and all this legislation, it's all written saying his and him, and that's not because they were sexist. It's just because it was written 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We're not going to change all of that stuff to remodel it. But yeah, like I say, I don't think we're actively discriminating against anybody now. We all have equal opportunities, and you're a perfect example of what is capable when people don't accept average and they just hold themselves to a bit of a higher standard. But I do genuinely worry about recruitment in the fire and rescue service. Like, how do you think we're going in terms of recruitment? Because I think there's not as many people applying for it these days. I think social media has sometimes made that better, sometimes made it worse. Because like, now you can do 1,000 things. What do you want to do when you grow up? Whereas like fire service, police, whatever, they're very old school professions to get into.
Yeah, it does worry me a bit sometimes because I've got such a long career ahead of me. I mean, if I want to, like, for my full pension, I've got to do 42 years. So I've still got a long time to do. Me a bit because the way that it seems to be going is the fire service is just getting smaller and smaller. And I think at some point we are going to have to take on more roles, which I think that we should do. But it's like, what roles can we take on as a service that gets us, like, we are firefighters, like, you know what I mean? So I think it is quite
what roles would you
worrying
like to see us take on? Of all the needs of the community, like, they always think this is a good question. What would you have us do? And you look at different models around the world. What do you think firefighters could upskill with that would be relevant to what we do?
I think, me personally, I think obviously it's very political, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I'd rather go down the sort of the ambulance route rather than the police route, just because I think that, like, as a service, we're there to help people and to like, we've all joined the job because we all have this caring nature in us somewhere.
Yeah.
We want to help people, and I think we need, like, the members of the public respect us for the job that we do, and I think we've been like taking on quite a few, just like seem to be getting more links into the police rather than the ambulance.
The police and the social
like the American
sector.
route.
Yeah, the American route, I think you're right. Like, I would prefer us to upskill as EMTs and stuff like that. My brother-in-law is a paramedic, and I love doing ride-alongs with him because you're still kind of doing the same thing. We already do first aid. We already deal with cardiac arrests and all that sort of stuff. We could onboard that, and yes, all of our unions need to be on board and blah, blah, blah. We're not going to get into the political conversation, but it would be an opportunity for us to take on a skill set, expand the role map, get paid a little bit more as well. But when people say, no, I just want to do fires, I'm like, well, fires are getting less. We're a victim of our own success there. Yeah, fires are getting less. So what do you want to do? Do you want to go and fit banisters for Mrs. Miggins? Or do you want to go and respond to first aid calls? Because you're going to have to make a decision at some point in time. Or do you want to go out and police the streets? Like for me, it would be, let's do the first aid, support the ambulance EMT model. Then maybe the police stuff, way before I want to go and fit banisters or cut hedges for Mrs. Goggins at 73 nowhere. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be going doing that. Oh, it's a waste of our skill set. We're highly trained individuals.
Yeah, that's the thing. We've got so many different skills that we have to learn. Why not just utilise them in a way that, like,
I think missing persons as well. Missing persons and search and rescue. We should do more stuff for missing persons. Yeah. That's all. Police all do that. We could help out with that. We've got the technology. We've got thermal imaging cameras and lots of support, and we've got people. You know, I'm like, let's do that. Yeah. Stuff like that always gets stuck for me. So you've been in the job for 5 or 6 years now. When you told people you were going on the show, let's just give a little bit of attribution. I'm not going to say necessarily what service you're from, but just for people that have an idea that they want to get into something like firefighting, it does give you a lot of freedom, this job does. So like, I'm guessing the support was pretty good that you'd had from your service.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I, like, the firefighter wise and stuff, they were all like completely not surprised at all because I'm a bit mental, so they were just thought, oh, sounds like something new. But yeah, from like the service point of view, they've been really supportive. Like, put me all over TikTok and just random stuff like. But yeah, it's been great. I've had so much support. I think it's nice as well because on the show it kind of gets me as like Bronte Jones firefighter, so I'm kind of representing the service as well. And I think I hope I'm representing it in a good light. So 100%. I think they appreciate it.
Irrespective of your service, with the greatest respect from the people that I've spoken to, it's bigger than that. And I'm not saying it will like changing the world here and curing cancer, but what I mean is a lot of people get fixed in their service because they've usually only been part of one service and that's the be all and end all to them. But just for UK fire and rescue service, for first responders in the UK, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but I think you're a wonderful example of it. You're exactly what the public want to see. A fit, healthy person, clearly buzzing with optimism, confidence, kindness, good sportsman, yet competitive as well, pushes herself, puts herself out there. That is a great embodiment of what we want to see for our first responders. So I'm not astonished at all. I would be really disappointed if your service had, I know they have supported you, but like, the easy thing to say is no, is the problem with a lot of this stuff. Like, a lot of people don't go for stuff because they assume their service will say no, or they assume they'll get in trouble, they might get sacked. And I'm like, I always think it's easy to ask for forgiveness and permission sometimes. And you should ask for permission, all right, I get it. But does your moral compass say this is a good thing to do and that you're going to conduct yourself in a professional manner? If those two boxes are ticked, it's kind of your gut feel. If you feel like what you're doing you shouldn't be doing, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. Do you know what I mean? But this is something where I'm so glad you did go for it, because I bet there's loads of people were watching it on fire stations going, damn, I was going to go for that, but I thought I'd get in trouble, or I thought my service wouldn't let me, or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, there's been some like firefighters who's been like, oh, I wish I applied for it, or I might apply for it next year. So I just think it's great for them. It might be something that they want to do.
Mm-hmm. So take us to the final. So, I mean, well, tell us some highlights through the show that you found, and then take us, because people will have seen it by now. They'll have unfortunately seen the injury, but let's try and go through a bit of a logical path about some of the highlights from the time you spent filming, the friendships that you made, any particular good memories that perhaps people won't have seen on the show, and then obviously the final itself.
Yeah, honestly, I think that the whole thing has just been such a laugh and just such a good experience. Like, obviously, there's been loads of different things I've never done before. Like, I've never had a camera in front of my face like I did 24/7 as well, because you don't see, but like when you're out there, obviously the cameras are all on you, but as soon as you go backstage, you've got a camera following you around, making sure they get everything. Then they want a debrief before, like, after the event, and then they want like to know how you're feeling before the next event. And you know,
Most
and
of
then
it they
there's like
never
costume
use.
changes.
You're like, oh, what?
No,
And you don't get the footage either.
no, that's what I was surprised at because there were so many like interviews
I know.
backstage, and then like
We had that. We
um
were out there for
yeah,
like, I think I was out there in the Vietnam thing for, how long were we out there for? 3 weeks. And 3 weeks turns into 6 45-minute episodes. And like all of the laughs that you had in the changing rooms or in the bunks or out in the jungle or wherever, you get sent a few photos. And I get it because it's their intellectual property and they paid for it and blah blah blah. But you do think, I remember one a lady called Anne that was on the show with me, and in the dorms where you all have to sleep, you basically get locked in there, and that's where you have to stay all the time. And she turned away from the rest of the group to get changed because she was in the corner, and then she took a top off, took a bra off, and bang, there's a camera right in front of her because they've got mounted cameras everywhere. And she comes over to me and she's all distressed and she's like, I've just got my breasts out right in front of the camera. And I was like, I'm sure they won't use it. Don't worry about it. It's not that sort of show. I'm sure they won't do it. Did you have any moments where you were like wandering to the toilet or in the changing rooms and the camera's still on you and you're like, I'm gonna get changed here? You know, what's the crack? You know, or was there any moments where you felt like, God, I hope that doesn't make it onto the thing?
a lot of things that I said, which I thought I hope that don't make it, but they weren't out. It was all like cameramen that was like, well, our women, whatever the word is, but like it was following you about more.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were loads of things that I said, and I thought, I really hope that don't go on it, just because I sounded like.
Did you have do you get coaches and support in there? Because like, are you wandering around backstage as an individual athlete, or do you all go to the same changing room, or what's the crack?
So there's like a female and a male locker room. The Gladiators have a separate locker room.
I think the Gladiators must have 2 locker rooms, don't they? Because they have a fake one where they film everything, and they must have another one.
Yeah, they do. It was like further down.
Yeah.
But that was the other thing. It wasn't like they kept us separate. Like we could mingle with them and speak to them, and it was all really nice and friendly. And so yeah, that was good. But yeah, I think it was just, the whole thing was just so crazy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some like memorable. I think the best thing on the show was probably when I fell off that net and then just carried on.
Oh, mate, I was worried you were going to get your ankle caught or something, because you leapt for it and it sort of went away from you as you were going for it, didn't it? And then you just seemed to stack it, and I was like, God, that, especially with a net where you can get your arm or your leg stuck, I was like, Jesus, I hope she's all right there.
Yeah, no, I managed to scrape. To be fair, to get to the final without getting injured, because I'm so injury prone normally, I kind of thought this is a miracle if I'd been injured, but then obviously it happened in the final. But because at that point I didn't know how bad the injury was, I kind of thought, if it is just a sprained ankle, I'm going to look like a right idiot, like going on camera and saying that I've hurt myself. So I tried to keep it as quiet as possible.
Yeah.
Like, they strapped me up and gave me drugs and things, but yeah, I tried to like play it down loads, so I don't know how well it's come across. But
did they what's the day to day when you're like there? Is it you all meet for breakfast? Because you said like you're able to mingle with the Gladiators. Did you make any particular, like, I'm not saying you've made a friend, you're not going to school or play school, but you know, like, was there anybody you really got on with who you were like, oh, she's really cool, or he's really cool, or like backstage, was there anyone that particularly reached out to you and that maybe you've got a friendship that maybe will continue beyond Gladiators?
Yeah, I've not met anyone in person since, but like we still keep in touch, like with some of the Gladiators over social media. Like Toby Phantom, he still makes quite a bit, and Fiore, I think she were who I got along with the best. I think just being from Yorkshire and just like we just both had a good laugh together. But yeah, they've all like still comment on me stuff and like the content. Like, we're all good friends now, and some of the local ones, I've seen them a few times since.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just been like really positive. Like, everyone there is just like so motivated and so like people to be around.
Who do you think was the best athlete from the Gladiators? If I had to push you into a corner, it doesn't mean you've got a favourite. It just means from what you saw, you thought, wow, so and so's got a little bit of something going on there. They're really impressive as a human being.
I think Jodie was definitely the female, just because.
What was her Gladiator name? Sorry, for people that won't remember Jodie.
Fiore. just because she was just proper nails, like there was all hard to. Every time I was against Fiora, I was kind of like, oh bloody hell type thing. Just had no fear.
Do you think she's developed that from having? Because obviously, I imagine she learned to speak later in her life. I wonder how much resiliency that has built mentally for her, with people saying she couldn't do things, and how she's managed to push herself to be the athlete she is today.
Yeah, I think that's part of it as well, because of how phenomenal she is as an athlete, and how strong she is, and then also having to like have that battle as well. She's just such a big inspiration. And being from Yorkshire as well, it's kind of nice to see. But yeah, I think obviously the men, all the men are amazing. I think Harry came to eat Nitro. He was just so much fun. Like he just brought the energy. He was like
a magnetic personality, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Do you know what I found really impressive was Apollo? I think he is very unassuming, because with the greatest of respect, when you see him with his shirt off, he doesn't look all that, but he is just such a physical specimen. Like, he's so goddamn strong, and he's like got one of those rugby rowing, athletic builds where you're like, he can actually do the thing. Because like some of them, like with the greatest of respect, and again, we've had him on the podcast, I love Jamie. Jamie built his body for aesthetics. So Giant is a bodybuilder. He is obviously very fit now, and he's lost a lot of weight and all this sort of stuff. But his body, he didn't build his body for function. He built it to look a certain way. Whereas Matt was a previous athlete and a sprinter, and still does a lot of training and all that sort of stuff. And Apollo is one of those where I'm like, he's clearly just an unknown athlete. And when you see him in Powerball or whatever, whoa, he just knocks people. And the gauntlet, he has really got some power.
Yeah, that's what I like though. Cause I think it's that bracket of like, you look at me, you don't think that I really train that much. I've not got massive muscles or a six pack or anything like that, but I am like quite deceptive.
Yeah.
I do like it, like with a and like that they don't look like anywhere as good as what they.
They're the ones where you're like, oh, he's there for a reason. He's not there just for the pictures and the glossy whatever. He's there because he's a goddamn athlete. Do you know what I mean? Like, he would show up, wouldn't give the fanfare and the big speech. He'd just get it done. And you're like, wow, what an absolute dude. I love him. Really, really like that guy. He's probably my favourite, I think, actually. So take us to the injury. People will have seen the footage now. What actually happened?
So it was on the edge, which was the third event in, and I'm not sure. It happened so fast, so I don't know whether it was when Fiora tackled me and I went over on my ankle, or if it was when we landed in the net. But basically, I just I tore my ATFL ligament in my foot, so had to have a boot on for a while. It was a grade 2 tear, so it wasn't the worst. It wasn't like didn't need an operation, but obviously it was quite a long rehab. But yeah, it was just one of those things that I'm like, at the time it was kind of like, do I give up now? Which obviously was never going to happen. But they were like getting a sub ready in the back because they weren't sure if I could carry on or not. But I just thought, I'm in the final. I can't quit now. Like, let's just carry on.
Yeah.
Drugged up, strapped up. And I managed to finish, and obviously it was quite close. Like, there was less than a second in it in the end. But yeah, it was just one of them things where I was absolutely gutted with the way it ended, but also at the same time, like, it was such an amazing experience, and I did my absolute best. So
it's part of that incredible story arc as well, I think. Like, having that setback and coming through it. And it was a genuine injury. Do you know what I mean? This isn't just all for show or anything like that. Just because you don't see someone snap their leg doesn't mean it's not a genuine injury. And I think the game, The Edge, I think that was a crap game. I did not like that. I didn't think it really pushed people in their athleticism. Like, I mean, okay, you had to move fast across the thing, but I was like, I think they could have, from some of the older events that they used to have, I was like, I think they could have done some better ones here. I get that it's scary because it's really up high and that can, get people's fear. But even for the Gladiator, I was like, I don't see how they're going to demonstrate their athleticism very much here. Yeah. It's a weird game. I just thought it was riddled with potential injuries as well. I was like, you only need to land on one of those things, say twist your ankle, snap your knee sideways when you're coming off it. And I'm like, I didn't like it personally.
Yeah, I know. I don't think that they give it justice either with how high it was on the show.
Yeah.
And as well, like when you're in the audience, like everyone was saying that you couldn't see what was happening above.
No, you have to all watch the screens, don't you? Because you can't see anything up there.
Yeah. It wasn't my favourite game just because I think it was so predictable, because the only tactic I had was just to like run as fast as I could across, and once I got across once, I knew what I'm going to do then next time. So yeah, I always knew that I weren't going to get many points on it, to be fair, but yeah, I know what you mean. It wasn't a game where you could show how good you are, really, was it?
No, it wasn't. There wasn't much where you're going toe-to-toe from an athletic perspective. It didn't involve a tremendous amount of power or reactions or tactics. I mean, there was definitely probably some tactics involved in it, but I was like, yeah, was there any event that when you saw the list you were particularly nervous about? Was there anything where you were like, oh God, I don't know about that? I always think Hang Tough, if they still call it Hang Tough, and I saw some of the gladiators really struggle on that, because grip strength, you have to train it.
I know. I was so gutted that I never got to do Hang Tough, because I tried it, like we had a day before, and that was my best event, really. That was the one that I wanted to do. If I could only pick one event, it would be Hang Tough, because I picked it up quite quick. So yeah, I was proper gutted I never got to do Hang Tough. But no, there wasn't any that I dreaded, really. I always wanted to do duels, and that was my favourite.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all just fun, to be fair.
I think Powerball looked like it was the most physically exhausting when you go toe-to-toe with the gladiators. That's a real gut-busting kind of event, because it really is. It's like rugby, basically. Even though it's obviously nowhere near as long, there's a lot of physical contact going to happen during that, and you just got to keep going and going and going.
Yeah, I think Powerball and the ring, they were both the toughest.
Yeah.
Just because you're in it of, like, you're sprinting at top speed, really, to try and get past it, and then just getting tackled and then having to get back up and get tackled again. Like,
I'm surprised there wasn't more injuries with that one. That's where I thought you'd see people going over in the wrong way.
Yeah, I know. But I think it was good, really, that you could see that, because the male gladiators were so much bigger than the contestants. I think they were sort of being nice with them, really, weren't they?
Yeah.
Trying not to... You don't want to hurt anyone. Yeah, you're just playing a game at the end of the day.
Well, I think that some of them were being nice, but I think some of them, again, even to be fair to gladiators, unless you've trained that, and again, that's where Apollo was just incredible, because he's obviously got a rugby background, something like that, but if you've not trained how to tackle people, he was ragging people like a rag doll. He was just throwing...
Yeah.
Well, some people were just like pushing him off, just like trying to keep them away, and then they'd slip past people. But he was full on, and I think Zach as well. He's a very, very physical individual with all his CrossFit training. He was really, really impressive. And then obviously Nitro's fast, but I don't think he had the same level of physicality. I wanted to ask you about nerves, because again, people will look at something like this and have aspirations to perhaps do it, and even look at some of the stuff you do with your weightlifting, your Olympic lifting. How do you handle nerves? Like, take us back to show one, when you can hear the crowd, you've added some interviews, you've put your outfit on, someone's done your hair and makeup, they're telling you, okay, what's going to happen is their guys are going to go out, they're going to call your name, they're going to do 5 minutes of chatting, then you two are going to run out and you're going to high five each other in the middle, you're going to turn to your right, and they're like, talk to us about handling nerves. Today's podcast is powered by our partner Lifelines and their revolutionary approach to functional hydration. Just like in firefighting, water is essential for body function, but studies show more than 80% of firefighters are dehydrated. A 25-year study findings from the National Institute of Health showed poor hydration to be linked to early aging and chronic disease, and even mild dehydration results in significant negative impact outcomes, including headaches, exhaustion, rapid pulse, irritability, and poor cognitive function. A study conducted by Yale University showed that participants who were just 1% dehydrated had a 12% increase in errors when performing tasks that required cognitive flexibility. In addition, dehydration is shown to worsen mood and attitude, contribute to confusion and poor decision making, and negatively affect memory and judgment. In other words, you really don't want your incident commander, firefighter, or for that matter any first responder on a critical scene to be even slightly dehydrated. Mild dehydration occurs when a person is just 1.5% dehydrated, a condition that does not even trigger the thirst response in most people. So just imagine how quickly a firefighter or any first responder can and does become dehydrated in their day-to-day duties, which is why I address my hydration first thing every day with Lifelines. Go into the notes for this episode and specifically check out Lifelines Hydro Fuel and Hydro OG by clicking in the notes for the podcast for a clean energy solution designed for those who demand more from their day. Now back to the show.
think, to be honest, me out of most people was probably the best at handling it, just because, like, from being very young, I've always competed, and obviously the high. I think that I've always been good at dealing with the pressure. So I think in terms of nerves, I'm quite good at handling them. I'm not saying I don't get nervous, because I do get nervous, and obviously it's very daunting when you're going out there and you've got a whole audience of people like with their eyes on you. But I think that in them situations, I can handle it quite well. Just have a smile on my face type thing. Just think, like my dad's always said to me from being young, that diamonds are formed under pressure. So I've always kind of had the attitude of just enjoy it and embrace it, rather than like shy away from it.
Yeah, you've got to lean into that feeling. I always say nerves and butterflies and whatever, and that anxiety that some people perceive it, is just your body telling you something really important is about to happen. And I'm giving you all the energy, I'm giving you all the oxygen and all the endorphins that you need to go and crush this. All this adrenaline is there for you to use. It's not there to overwhelm you like you're going to drown in it. I always say fear is a bit like an ocean, but it's only an inch deep. It's like a mile wide and an inch deep. You look at it and you think you're going to drown. But actually, when you just jump into it, you realize it's just a massive, massive puddle, and you can really go for it and you can embrace it. It's not something that you're going to get wrapped up in and it's just going to swallow you.
Yeah, that's a good way. Look, I'll remember that.
It's always easier said than done for people. But I want to be super respectful of your time. But before we go, I did want to ask you about, you know, some of the training that you've done, but also maybe some of the fundamentals that if people are squeezed for time, because again, there'll be a lot of firefighters tend to listen to the show. We also get a lot of members of the public as well. And I like this analogy. I've been using it with quite a few guests lately in the fitness realm, of like your top 10 desert island exercises. Like if you only had 10 exercises you could do for the rest of your life. You're stuck somewhere. You can have any equipment you like. You can have any. It's the best gym you've ever designed in the world, but you're only allowed to do 10 exercises, and they need to keep you fit, healthy, strong, and happy for the job as well. Like, what would your top 10 be? And I'll write them down, and we'll try and keep track.
Yeah. So number 1 would be squats.
I'm going to push you into a corner. What sort of squats? Front, rear, sumo, split? I'm
going to go back squats.
Okay. So barbell squats, number 1.
Number 2, snatches,
okay,
just because they're so complex. Number 3, power cleans.
Okay.
Number 4 will be burpees.
Amazing mobility, full body kind of workout. Okay, we've got 4.
We've got 4. What's going to be number 5? Oh, this is getting hard now.
No, what's beautiful about yours, because some people have picked specific gym stuff, the beauty of your top 3 is they're almost full body. And that's what a lot of the powerlifting moves are. A lot of Olympic lifting and weightlifting is. They're very inclusive of a lot of the body.
Yeah. Can we go swimming? That'd be one.
Yeah, 100%. Swimming for mobility and active recovery is amazing.
Yeah. So then I'd have a little rock wall in my gym and I'd go rock climbing.
Rock climbing, love it. How often do you swim? Is that part of your training program?
No, it's not part of it. I just quite like swimming, to be fair.
I love it, but it's just a ball ache to do it sometimes, isn't it? Because you have to, it's usually separate from your other training. You have to go to a different place and park and get changed and faff about. And obviously you've got long hair, so I have that same challenge of drying my hair and putting my makeup on after I've swam. So it's always a bit of a ball ache.
Yeah. I just thought, if you're on a desert for one thing, you want to do it, go swimming.
100%. Rock climbing's a great one. That's the first time anyone said rock climbing. I don't even think they would consider it an exercise. But it is. Yeah, it's perfect, that is. You've got 3 more. No, you've got 4 more, sorry. 7, 8, 9 and 10.
Oh, I go snatch balance. I like doing snatch balance.
So for anybody that hasn't seen that, and they might Google it, but what is snatch balance?
So basically, it's a barbell. You have it on your shoulder in like a snatch grip, so you've got your hands quite wide. And then you basically just drop to the floor into a squat and press the bar above your head. So you're kind of like dropping quicker than the bar's moving down, basically.
Love it.
Like just for power. But it's quite a technical one.
I can't do it.
And then
I can't move fast enough for it. I need to work more on my mobility for that.
Yeah. And then I've got 3 more.
Yeah.
So last 3, I'm going to go push press, front squats, and for my last one...
You've got nothing that isolates on the arms. Now, they're all getting involved in everything, I appreciate. And before you put push press in there, I mean, a lot of the stuff we've got overhead there. So we've got the shoulders involved. So much of this is power, which I think is fantastic. And it's also, I don't think you've picked anything that isn't functional, which is almost ironic when you look at a lot of the gyms in fire services around the UK where they still have a lot of machines and stuff like that. And I'm like, the list you've got there, we've got one more to go, obviously, but that's really, really, I mean, core strength is involved everywhere there. We've got a lot of grip strength involved as well.
So last one, I'll go pull-ups just because it's a bit different.
Pull-ups are brutal. On average, do you know how many pull-ups the females can do on average?
Seen this the other day. Is it 0?
Yeah, I know. How brutal is that? But they are hard as hell. I say a progression to that. Yes, you can use the bands and everything like that. But if you just try and do a hang from a bar, there's something like when they test the longevity of people's fitness, grip strength is something they test. And for men, you should be able to hold 90 seconds on a bar. And I think for women, it's 45 seconds. But that's hard. People think that's not a lot of time. You just hang from a bar. Any bar, you can put a bar on the rack at the gym or whatever, or if there's a pull-up bar, just try and do a hang. Bloody difficult for really get a long period of time on it.
It is. That was the one with the test to get on Gladiators, actually.
Oh, really? How long did you have to pass for?
Yeah. It was just, well, there wasn't a pass or fail. It was just video yourself doing it and see how long you lasted.
How long did you last?
3:05, I think it was.
3:05? Whoa.
Yeah. It was
I don't think I can hold on to a bar for that long. I used to be 24 stone, right? And I'm now about 17 and a half, 18 stone. And I still can't do that. My strength to weight ratio, even though I'm quite strong, but the strength, that's the whole thing about weightlifting, is like the power and the strength to weight ratio is so impressive, because it's where the big people just can't keep pace with the sort of stuff that all of you shorties are doing. You just seem to be, your power to weight ratio and what you can lift is really, really impressive, I think.
Oh, thank you.
I want to be super respectful of your time, but I've absolutely loved chatting with you today. Is there any closing thoughts? I actually remember talking to you, like, if you had any favourite quotes or anything that when you are having setbacks, because also after you've had that injury, I imagine the rehab was particularly challenging and having to scale back some of your training and stuff like that. Is there any particular mindset or any books or any resources or podcasts or favourite quotes that you have found particularly useful in sustaining what is clearly a really optimistic mindset of a high level of self-confidence?
Yeah, I know. I don't have anything in particular, like any quotes that I live by or anything, but I just always make sure that I keep myself positive and happy, and however that looks, I just make sure that I keep motivated in some way.
Awesome. Yeah. Absolutely love it. Well, look, some love to your dad, some love to you fella, some love to everybody at the station. I really enjoyed chatting with you today and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
The Firefighters podcast was created to recognize, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests. And as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents that get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you're in the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.